The 18th Amendment stated that it is illegal to produce, transport, import, and sell liquors in the United States. Prohibition was a major conflict in the United States in the 1920s because of the controversy on whether it should be legalized or not. Unfortunately, in some cases, certain social groups took their beliefs to extremes in damaging property to get their point across. This created a conflict across the nation because many people differed in opinion on the idea if alcohol should or should not be allowed. One social group was named the Women's Christian Temperance Union. The leader of the group was Frances Willard. Willard led the WCTU to a march to the Capitol and presented a prohibition amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The overall significance was that the WCTU influenced the government for prohibition. Mother Thompson inspired the Women's Crusade, which was a women's social group that was against the production of alcohol. They were successful in closing thousands of saloons, but in the end, they could not keep the saloons closed. The women's significance during the Prohibition era was that they wanted alcohol to be ruled illegal by the U.S. government, because mothers and children at home were tired of abusive husbands in their home. Abuse was a common topic that the pro-prohibition people used as their argument for prohibition because the physical abuse was done to all family members. Once many women realized all of the domestic violence, they started the temperance movement. This was a social movement, all about trying to get alcoholic beverages banned. Eventually, the 18th Amendment was officially ruled January 18, 1920. The punishments for violating the prohibition laws included 6 months of jail time and a fine up to $1,000. However, not everyone in the U.S. complied with the 18th Amendment. Many people were fixated on getting their alcohol because they were addicted to the poison. The ban of alcohol also increased crime significantly. The people that fight for the control to monopolize alcohol during the Prohibition era were known as bootleggers. In bigger cities, these bootleggers had a serious business of making money off the illegal substance. It was also a dangerous business. The business had to fend off other groups of bootleggers from stealing their liquor. The amendment made more money for big-time gangsters, such as Al Capone. The most effective way for the bootleggers to obtain the alcohol was through importation from other countries. Otherwise, they had to make their own alcohol in buildings called breweries that had to be disguised as other buildings, along with other buildings, so the law enforcement would not shut it down.
Normal citizens went into speakeasies to hang out and drink alcohol. The opposition to the 18th Amendment made its case that alcohol should not be legalized because it promotes crime. But perhaps more importantly, it invades the civil liberties of an American by banning a substance that does not harm other people than the one who is consuming it. Andrew Volstead wanted stricter rules regarding outlawing beer and wine as well as hard liquor. The Volstead Act was passed in October 1919. President Wilson tried to veto it, but the Senate and Congress overruled. As a result of the opposition's case, Franklin Roosevelt, along with the U.S. government at the time, repealed the ban of alcohol with the 21st Amendment of the United States. There were benefits to both sides pertaining to the U.S. government repealing of the 18th Amendment. The people of the U.S. that opposed the 18th Amendment were once again illegally allowed to consume alcohol under certain restrictions. Those restrictions meant that there were laws that the consumers of alcohol had to follow. This satisfied the people that were in favor of the 18th Amendment. The government also benefited from the legalization of alcohol because they could tax consumers at a higher rate and as a result generate more money for the government. In the end, it was a win for all sides as the people of the United States compromised for a solution.
On the 15th of December 1933, the 21st Amendment to the United States Constitution came into effect, repealing the 18th Amendment, which had made the sale, manufacture and transportation of alcohol illegal. Having been proposed on the 20th of February 33, the 21st Amendment was ratified on the 5th of December. Prohibition had been introduced in 1920 as a result of the 18th Amendment. This ban on the sale, production, importation and transportation of alcoholic beverages was greeted with delight by members of the temperance movement, but many law-abiding Americans who had previously been drinkers felt anger towards the government for criminalizing what they viewed as a harmless activity. As a result, some members of the public were willing to break the law, and this quickly ushered in a period of criminal activity focused around the production of illegal bootlegged alcohol. Al Capone, one of Prohibition's most famous gangster bosses, made around $60 million a year from bootlegging alcohol and then selling it in so-called speakeasies. Izzy Einstein, one of the government's most famous Prohibition agents, demonstrated the scale of the problem facing the authorities who were trying to enforce the ban on alcohol. When visiting New Orleans, it took Einstein just 35 seconds to obtain liquor after his taxi driver from the station offered him a bottle of whiskey. Combined with many police officers being paid by the criminals to turn a blind eye to illegal activity, Prohibition brought lawlessness and corruption to America. In the wake of the Wall Street crash, repealing Prohibition made sound economic sense, although the introduction of the 21st Amendment went on to ensure that individual states were still able to enforce their own alcohol laws.
First question, what does it take for an amendment to be created?
My name is Roger Gelb. I'm an attorney in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. I've been practicing about 27 years. For an amendment to the Constitution to be created, there's two ways to do it, but the only way that's been successful thus far is for Congress, both houses, to pass with a two-thirds majority the proposal. Once both houses have passed the proposal by two-thirds, it goes to the states for a vote. If 3/4 of the states vote in favor of the amendment, then the amendment passes. There is one other way, which would require two-thirds of the state legislatures to pass it, and then it goes to Congress for a vote. That would create an amendment to the Constitution. And by the way, once an amendment's created, doesn't mean it's a constitutional amendment. Courts could then screen it, and if it didn't pass their muster, then it could be struck down.
Second question, what does it take for an amendment to be repealed?
The simple answer is to be repealed, the amendment you have to create another amendment to repeal it. So with the 18th Amendment, which created the prohibition on sale and exporting and importing of alcohol and manufacture of alcohol, the 21st Amendment was created to essentially abolish the First Amendment.
Okay, that concludes the interview. Thank you.